What is going on, folks? Hope you're all well. There's a little cheers for you. This is something that I've been looking forward to for a couple of days now because we are starting a new journey. Kind of starting a new journey, not really, because we've already heard one album. But we are going to embark on the first steps of, hopefully, what will be a very enjoyable experience of checking out the entire discography of Ghost. Now, it's not the biggest discography in the world, and I've got a lot of things to say, which I'll try not yap too much, but if you are new to the channel, new to the Patreon, it's just something you're gonna have to get used to. If you like my analysis of the music and you like my reactions and everything else, unfortunately, the burden that you're going to have to carry with that is that I yap so fucking much. I'm sorry, some people complain about that, some people love it. Anyways, it's nice to meet you. If you're back again, it's good to see you again. We're gonna be checking out the first ever Ghost album called Opus Eponymous. I think I'm saying that right. And they obviously started off their discography with just pure weirdness, because Opus Eponymous is a crazy name for a first ever album. I'm very shocked by the fact that Ghost's first ever album came out in 2010. I mentioned it in my reaction to their new album, Skeletá. Like, I kept saying like, oh, I just kind of assumed that these guys were around for as long as the likes of Metallica. I just assumed they were kind of like a legacy band, which couldn't be further from the truth. Obviously, their style is very like 80s from their last album. Obviously, I'm sure we'll see all of the different changes and the fluctuations of their sound throughout their discography as we go. But I just kind of assumed that they were a band that was making music like 30, 35 years ago, 40 years ago with the likes of Metallica and like a lot of these big fucking massive legacy bands, because these guys have a fucking massive following. And I kind of just assumed that if you have a massive following, you're either one of the bands that have kind of blown up in the last couple of years, the likes of Sleep Token and Bad Omens and all these like huge big bands, maybe the Horizon, or you've just been around since the dawn of time. There doesn't seem to be a lot of bands that kind of fit this middle ground that Ghost kind of fall into, that category where, like, you know, there's the Sleep Tokens and Bad Omens, all these like big popular like modern metal bands that have kind of blown up over the last couple of years. And then there's like the legacy bands, and there's like this big gap in the middle where I feel like all of these bands that are now huge now that like blew up over the last couple of years were kind of like in that space where they were blowing up and now they're just like a huge big thing. But Ghost are kind of the exception. And I'm sure there is lots of other bands that maybe I'm just not thinking of, or maybe just haven't been put on my radar. But Ghost are definitely a band that I guess came around, you know, 2010 is their first album. Maybe they'd released an EP or some songs before that, I don't fully know. But the first album discography on Spotify is 2010, which is crazy to me because that's relatively new. You know, a lot of these bands that I have been listening to and doing deep dives on started before Ghost, which is mad because these guys have, I think, 8 million monthly listeners on Spotify, 8.8 million. And I've seen it already in my comment section on YouTube, and anything that is Ghost related just gets like a lot of engagement, and there's a lot of people who are diehard fans of Ghost. So obviously, for good reason from what I've seen in the, you know, in the actual music, because I really enjoyed the new album. Now, what I'll do is quickly before we dive into the music is I'll just jump over to this screen here where you can see I have the album ready to go, and I just wanted to see if there was any music videos, but I don't think there is until I've just seen this. Now, this square hammer looks like it's not off of this album, so that's fine. But one thing I wanted to mention was, very interestingly, I found this Anthony Fantano, which I can't believe, like, this guy, I know he calls himself the internet's busiest music nerd and he has a lot of awful takes, but this motherfucker has been doing album reviews on YouTube for 14 plus years. You have to respect it. This man is the OG of OGs. 14 years ago is insane. What? Like, that's insane. I know album reviews have existed pretty much since albums started. Like, album reviews on YouTube, that's got to be one of the fucking, he's got to be the first person ever to do that. 14 years ago? Like, for context, I made my first music-related video like maybe 6 years ago at a stretch. This motherfucker has been doing it for double that time and then some. Respect to Anthony Fantano, despite me not loving his opinions sometimes, but I think he's good at what he does. Yeah, I wanted to just have a look and see if there was any, you know, anything related to like music videos, but it doesn't look like it. But I want to just quickly jump over to the comments because this is important, because we're going to go on a full album deep dive. So if you're here for the journey, you know, this is all relevant. If you haven't seen my reaction to Skeletá, maybe start there and come back. So this is my reaction to Skeletá, and I'm going to like it here very humbly. And I'm seeing a lot of the comments. I did try and read as many as possible. Obviously, I couldn't get back to everyone because there's literally 366 comments here. Gene Walker is a pun for the Swedish word, that word. I don't know if you guys should be able to see that, but it means in English ghost. So obviously ghosts are, you know, kind of meme lords. And I think I was saying what this guy's even referring to. I think Gene Walker is credited as a producer on the last Ghost album, Skeletá. And I believe that's what this guy is referring to here, that it's a pun for the Swedish word blah 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 blah. So I was actually saying that like, oh, this Gene Walker guy's a genius producer, but that's actually the main guy, I believe, who is Tobias from this comment. So everyone's kind of letting me know. So this is why the comments are helpful. So keep all these comments coming, because I obviously do get around to reading them, and I'll try and do this maybe on each video where I kind of go through the comments and just get filled in more on the lore, because there seems to be a lot. But yeah, so like people are saying oh my god, Meliora is the album of them all. So I've seen not many comments, if any, to be honest, about this album. But of course we are just gonna start off with the start, because I've made that mistake in the past with bands where I do like their most recent album and then I kind of go backwards to the discography, and it kind of just makes no sense. So we're gonna start as we mean to go on, and that's about it, lads. So without any further ado, let's jump into Opus Eponymous by Ghost. Guys, quick word from our sponsors, aka myself. I am sponsoring my own video with a plug for my Patreon. The video you're about to watch is a highlight video. If you want the full hour-plus long video of me yapping about this album and going super nerdy in depth to all of the Ghost albums, then please do consider supporting on my Patreon for just 5 squidlies a month. There is also, on top of all the Ghost content that we're going to be getting to over the next couple of weeks, there is hundreds of album reactions that already exist over there, and obviously you'll get early access to all of the videos before they drop. So if you're a Ghost fan and you're looking forward to the full deep dive, then I suggest patreon.com/DrewFortune. All the links are in the description. Otherwise, enjoy this highlight video. Love you. Kind of a Tool-esque feel to this. Okay. It is a kind of a Tool-esque riff. Maybe some of the stuff from the earlier days of Tool. Yeah, it's just the like the muted kind of rising tension that they're building. Just gives me Tool vibes. I think Jambi is just stuck in my head from Tool. Ooh. Flared vocals. Again, even earlier in their career, their layering of tracks is fantastic. Oh, that's a fucking weird ass fade out. Okay, so that was, I guess, the first like official track. I'm not gonna go like massively in depth with certain themes, because even some of the things that I touched on in my reaction to Skeletá was a little bit off, because I was maybe just like too literal with some of my translations, because obviously they might be talking about some type of lore or something maybe very specific to the way the band's been building over time, and I was kind of looking at it and like translating the words and then taking that as the meaning. So I'm not going to go too deep. I think on these listens, for the most part, I'll be doing more of a musical in-depth deep dive. The lore and everything is fun, and I guess it's going to be relevant, and it's something that I'll pick up over time, especially with the help of you guys in the comments. So that's kind of like where I want to leave it with you guys, because ultimately me trying to do my own research could end up making this video like 6 hours long. Like, the album is 34 minutes long, so it is a nice digestible piece of work, and it's not been the most requested thing that I've seen, but I think it's just an important piece of the puzzle when we're doing the full discography, obviously. So I won't go too deep in the lyrics in this one. Obviously I'll have them up on the screen, and I'll take in what I can while we're going. But I suppose the lore on this one is a little bit important, considering it's the first stepping stone of the band and the direction that they've gone over the past 15 or so years, I guess. 2010, 15 years. These guys were literally Sleep Token before Sleep Token were a thing. With all of the lore and the rituals and the offerings and shit. But I think Sleep Token is kind of like making their own like cult-like religion thing, whereas this feels more based in like, I guess, actual religions, like, I guess, Christianity and all that kind of shit. I love the... Oh. I love the like subtle layer of organ under all this. It's harmonizing with its vocals, I think. Another fade out. They're very shameless with their fade outs, aren't they? Again, you can hear the organ coming in quite clearly here, but I think in the chorus, the organ was like harmonizing with the vocals, which just gave it a real kind of almost robotic feel to it, which was cool. But obviously this one was very on the nose with the topic. Like, I mean, they were literally like quoting, I guess, I should know all this because I went to church for fucking years, but like, our Father who art in hell, unhallowed be thy name. Did they ever catch heat for any of these lyrics? I mean, like, I don't know if that's necessarily the most disrespectful thing in the world. It's just kind of taking a like a prayer and making it their own, I guess, is one way of putting it. But did they ever like catch heat? Do they catch heat for this kind of stuff? I don't know if they're like an anti-religious band. It doesn't strike me as an anti-religious band, but they're obviously like, I guess, artistic in their approach when it comes to religion, which is it's an interesting one. I don't think they're a band that's caught heat, nor do I think it's necessarily warranted, but I guess you know what people are like. People get offended over shit. I'm more just curious because Our Father who art in hell, which is very on the nose as to what it's referring to, but it's obviously, instead of heaven, it's hell. Unhallowed, obviously just should be hallowed, be thy name. Cursed be the sons and daughters. Again, I could go on such a deep dive with the lyrical content, so I'm not going to do that much of a deep dive. Again, I'll let you guys fill me in the comments. Let me see the credits on this actually as well. So there's no credits here. Interesting. Elizabeth? Is there a reason as to why he's kind of pronouncing it like that? I know they're Swedish, right? Alive, Elizabeth. Nasty transition. I'm just taking some notes here on my screen. I didn't bring my pen and paper today, so you'll have to forgive. Again, there's always that organ in the background. It's so deeply rooted in like trying to... Yeah, it's so deeply rooted in making everything feel like it was recorded in like a church environment, I guess, which is really, really cool because it's not really something... I mean, when you think of metal music, like one organ... I know these guys aren't necessarily metal. There's like distorted guitars and like fun riffs. I guess people have described them as many different things, like doom metal, progressive metal, alternative metal, alternative rock, progressive rock, stoner rock, psychedelic metal, psychedelic rock. There is a lot of different things. And I think all of those labels make sense in different songs for sure. There's obviously certain areas where they really go into like, even like some pop elements as well. But I guess that's maybe just from like the falsetto vocals and stuff that I think in this song was the earliest example of those falsetto vocals. And it's very like theatrical in its delivery. Now, don't get me wrong, the melodies and stuff on this album are, from what we've heard so far, I'm sure there'll be more, but they're the early signs of how good this band has gone on to be melodically are definitely there. Like you can hear that they're like already experimenting with different like melody structures, and it makes sense hearing this, what they went on to become in terms of their production, their overall mix. Like the mix on this sounds great. Obviously there's not as many like maybe more nuanced production elements in some of their, you know, new songs, but the foundations are most certainly there. And it makes sense that this would be a band that I guess blew up pretty quickly, because this is still pretty fucking unique. In the years that I've been doing this band is like so unique compared to anything. Obviously I'll mention in certain moments where it might sound like Tool a little bit. In the newer album there was moments of Metallica. It was like an 80s synthwave vibe to their new stuff as well. So one thing I will say is it's very theatrical, and what I love, I think the most, what I'm most impressed about at the moment with this whole album and just Ghost in general, is their creativity when it comes to like Tobias, the vocalist. I don't know if maybe they're like their bassist or something steps in to do some of these other parts live, but it sounds like it might be in the same vocal ballpark or something that Tobias pulls off. But they use different like vocal styles and cadences and approaches to like portray maybe different, like, I don't even know how to describe it. So I have very theatrical with the use of different vocal cadences and deliveries to portray characters or other perspectives or entities almost. So there was a moment in this, and again in the moment in Satanized, in one of the more recent songs off the new album, they use like the like choir vocals of the blasphemy, heresy. Like they use certain moments like that to almost act as a, whether it be an actual physical character or more like a judgment thing that's going on in someone's brain. So like obviously with Satanized, the theme was this lyrical theme of, I guess, you know, human beings being flawed in nature and like kind of going towards lustful things and desires, and then they have this mental back and forth with their faith where they're like, okay, I'm actually being a bad person for doing this, but my like caveman instincts are telling me to, you know, have a Tom Hank. That was what I was joking about in that video. So they did that again in this, where he goes into more of a like a sinister kind of like, you are the... I don't know where it was in the song. Is it here? No. It's here. It's very theatrical. So it's like, it's still Tobias, I believe. If not, let me know. Again, that's what you guys have to let me know. But I think that's still Tobias. Her pact with Satan, her despisal of mankind, her acts of cruelty, and her lust for blood. It's almost like a narration that comes in. It's like, it's very theatrical and very like story-like, which I guess is why people have fallen in love with the lore so much. It makes sense because they do it very, very well. But anyway, enough yapping already. I did say I wasn't going to yap as much, but here we are. Apologies. Let's keep going. That was Elizabeth. And this is track number 5 of 9. Jesus, I know it's a short album, but this is flying by. And that's with me yapping. Organ again. It's just always present, very subtly. Kind of like Avenged Sevenfold there with some of the lead guitar work. Here's the theatrics again. Sounds like an organ drowning. It's like gurgling for air. That's cool. It's very trippy and psychedelic. Cool panning of the two different guitar layers. Okay, I actually started to learn the what's the name of this song? I started to learn it on the guitar, and it's so refreshing to play because I'm so used to trying to learn like modern metal, like metalcore songs, deathcore songs, progressive metal songs from a more like there's something with me and guitarists and shit, like the stuff that really tickles my fancy is stuff that's just like either undeniably groovy where you just have to just nod your head to, or stank face, or something that's just like so ridiculously technical. And for me, unfortunately, I have this thing where I want to learn all the technical stuff when I do not have the ability to do so. So when I heard some of the riffs that were relatively simple across the board compared to some of the stuff I've tried to learn in the past, it was such a fucking breath of fresh air. And I did start to learn the Misilia Amori track. If I think about it, in one of these videos, maybe it'll be at the end of this video, I'll include a segment of me playing it. It is relatively simple. I've seen a few different variations of how to play it online, but both variations, or the few variations that I have seen, have been fine. So that's been really fun and really refreshing. So I mean, across the board, their guitar riffs are really, really fun. Hasn't been anything on this album thus far that's like gotten me from a riff standpoint as much as anything off of the new album. But again, that makes sense. You know, this came out 15 years ago. They're still, I guess, developing and finding their sound. But again, there's this like juxtaposition. That was a big word that I wasn't even sure like was the right word when I checked out the new album. But I'd seen some comments saying that, yeah, it was the right word. So that juxtaposition is so prominent again, with the devil's power is the greatest one. So obviously they're very, like, if you just read that, you're like, whoa, these motherfuckers are going to be dark. Like if you just read that and you've never heard of Ghost before, and it's like, guess what genre this is? People are going to be like, oh, that's some fucking crazy deathcore or death metal or some shit, you know what I mean? But that's the juxtaposition, because listen to how he says it. Like, that is a very, like, I want to say bright delivery. It's kind of like monotone, and it's, you'd almost assume that would be something that's screamed, especially at the start of a track, you know? You can almost, the devil's power is the greatest one. And then like some fucking heavy guitars would come in. Whereas it's quite, I don't want to say like happy-go-lucky, but it's not intimidating. So there is a juxtaposition there where like even the guitar riffs are quite happy. Like it kind of makes you just want to, I don't know exactly if I can describe the feeling or the sound, but I just know what it makes you want to do. Like that's kind of what you want to do. You want to do a little like happy jig to it. So I guess in a way it feels a little bit happy, but then the lyrical content of it is very dark, and obviously it's all like religious shit, and it's literally talking about the devil and the power of the devil being the greatest one. So there is that juxtaposition there, which is obviously prominent throughout their discography by the sounds of things, which will be interesting to see how that develops. The organ in parts is, I guess, maybe not underrated because I've been talking about it so much, but I would imagine that's something that goes under the radar for most people who are just listening to these guys casually. I think some of the vocal deliveries, especially on this, are quite monotone compared to some of the melody choices and stuff on the new album. And I think the organ allows for a layer that isn't massively prominent, and it's not something that you pay too much attention to, but I think it's a very vital detail of filling up some of the space in some of those moments. I think it was, again, towards the end, where I think it might be the chorus. I don't know exactly structurally where it is in the song, but there's an organ in the background that, like, the vocal delivery is very monotone, I guess. Like, if you just strip back a lot of the layers, the vocal delivery is very, and the vengeance is for her as... Now, there's character in that. Like, there's kind of an irony in it where it's like, sometimes that monotone vocal delivery is very unique and gives it character by default. But I think what's actually really helping to give a lot of these moments life is that underlying layer of organ that in some cases is harmonizing with the vocals. But for the most part, it just seems to be kind of like a layer that's just filling up some of that space. And it just gives the whole thing a little bit more character. Let me just see if I can find exactly where I'm talking about. Is it here? Might be here somewhere. So mental exercise, try and imagine this section without the organ. Maybe if you're not listening on like a decent audio setup, you might not even hear the organ, but if you're listening on a relatively good audio setup, you'll hear the organ as a layer underneath all of the things that are going on. And I just think without that organ, I do think this whole vibe completely changes. The organ gives it like a warm feeling, whereas it doesn't feel very warm with everything else that's going on. It's a relatively like straightforward pattern that they're following, but the organ just kind of like brings it to life a little bit. I know I'm like really hyper focusing on like such a minute detail, but sometimes these minute details are what makes bands over time, like across full bodies of work, is actually what makes bands special, because there's like subtle details that separate them from the masses, you know? Like it's harmonizing with him there. 'Tis the night of the way. Like he's not a bad singer. I'm not trying to say that. It's just his delivery in this section is quite monotone. There is a little bit of a melody creeping in there, but 'tis the night of the wish. But the organ is like, the organ's almost kind of like giving it another layer of melody, if that makes sense. It's underneath it like, while he's like wish, and then the organ's kind of like working on the tail end of that. So there's my vocal analysis as someone who's not a vocalist. It's like on the tail end, you always hear it when like the bassier like vocals or whatever kind of peel off. You can hear the higher end of the organ coming through and kind of like giving it a nice melody at the end, you know? And I think that's working without you even really noticing a lot of the time until you start to like actively pick it apart. I'm loving this layering here. It's like kind of randomly panning back and forth between my left and right ear. Ooh. It's like a little bit funky. It's quite a like flat bass tone, but it's doing its job. Some of these transitions are really cool to me. There's the star of the show. There's the MVP coming back in. I'd actually almost argue that the organ is more melodic than the vocal delivery in parts. It's still there. It's a little bit more ominous in that part though. It sounded like it was... Oh. Okay. There's some trippy experimentation going on here. Some goofy sounding effects. Okay. So I believe, off the top of my head, I think that's the first time that a ghost himself has been mentioned. So, you know, again, fill me in on the lore. I guess the whole like thematic side of Ghost and like where it started from. But we'll pretty much just let it play out unless there's anything very obvious, and then I'll talk about it in detail at the end. It's a very immersive experience, isn't it? Like the lyrics matching up with the music. With the chime. I felt like I was being called upon there. What? I stopped paying attention to the lyrics for a second. Receive the beast of evil, eh? Ooh. That melody though. Could be a grower. That is so cool. I don't know what that is. Some kind of like percussive chime or something. It's like a big Kong sound. I guess it's a church thing again. The production and the creativity and some of the musical choices are fucking fantastic. Some of the moments in that, like the sound design was brilliant. It's just having, and this is the beauty of going back into discography, having had a taste of like where they are today, is that I kind of understand who they are as a band, but I kind of know that there's elements of their sound there that I know I can enjoy. So it's fun to kind of like go through from the start now and pick up all of the, you know, put the puzzle together essentially as we go. And hopefully along the way, you know, you've seen in the Skeletá album reaction, I had 5 songs added to my playlist that were just so catchy and just downright unique, to be honest. And I'm looking forward to being able to go through this discography and just have little moments that really stick with me, like we had in Skeletá. And people are saying, like, if you like this song, you for sure are going to love this album. So I'm looking forward to getting to those over the next couple of weeks and just being able to, like, you know, pick here and there, like which songs are going into the playlist. I think there's something a little bit missing from this. And this makes sense based on the fact that I didn't really see any response for this. I think people will say that their whole discography is stellar, but obviously, like any band, there's going to be higher peaks in discographies. Even though like certain bands have really, really consistent discographies, there's always going to be the ones that people will be like, yeah, it's not bad, but they just hadn't quite found their sound yet. And I think from what I've heard so far, again, compared to what I have heard with their new album, this is definitely a necessary thing to get, like, to go through, where I'm hearing the earlier stage of where they come from and like what their sound evolved from. Because there is moments of brilliance in here and genius. Like, again, like I mentioned with the sound design and stuff, it's really fucking good. I just think that the one thing that's not clicking with me with this so far is probably the melody choices. There's just not been a moment that I've really clicked with. And I think even with the songs like Satanize and stuff, even though I didn't love it on a first listen, I just can't stop singing it now. I actually had a funny moment in last night. We were recording a episode of the Metal Roundup podcast, which is a podcast that I have with Steve OG and Metalburb, who are actually 2 other like YouTubers like myself that are very deeply invested in the modern metal space. And we've all kind of just been getting into Ghost at the same time. We've all been getting involved. Like they were kind of the reasons that I got into Ghost, or started, like, gave the album a full chance and wanted to check out the album because they'd been checking out the singles and I didn't really love Satanize. And then they were like, no, Drew, we were talking about it on the Metal Roundup podcast. But anyway, to get around to all this, we had a podcast last night with Tank the Tech, who you guys might know. He's also a YouTuber. He tour manages for Electric Callboy. And my phone alarm is going off. Apologies if that was going off for ages. I didn't even realize. But he was basically, before we got on the actual podcast with Tank, I hadn't got because I was playing the guitar and I had my headphones set up. My output was wrong, so my output wasn't going to my headphones. So I was sitting in the call waiting for everyone to show up, and I was singing along. I don't know which song it was, but I just had one of the Ghost melodies stuck in my head from the new album, and I was singing that to myself. And then I look at my Discord, and Steve is in the meeting with me while I'm like looking at something and I'm singing along, and I don't have that tab open with the call. And Steve is trying to talk to me, and he's like, Drew, can you hear me? And I'm singing along to like Ghost without even realizing he's there. So that was an embarrassing moment. But the point is that these guys on their new album have fantastic melodies, and I know that there's going to be loads more throughout the discography, hopefully, that click with me as much as they did with the new album. But just right now, not quite there. But again, that's perfectly fine and it makes sense. Not every band is going to have a fucking absolutely 10 out of 10 discography from the day they start. But it's interesting and necessary to get through them, I think, to give me more context. So let's just keep going. 2 more songs. I know I said I'd just finish up, but again, this is what I said at the start of the video. I could yap for Ireland. That was cool. That sounded like something Whitechapel would do. without the breakdown. Probably the darkest song. So oh! Alright, hold on a minute. We went a little bit metal here for a moment, eh? What was this? What was this, Mr. Tobias? Felt like a wretch. Is that a synth? The fuck is that? It's very 80s again all of a sudden. It has like this spiraling feeling. It's very hypnotizing. Instrumental outro, I guess. Looks like it so far. Very porky. Oh, do you know what? It's very Porcupine Tree all of a sudden. And I know that is a relevant topic because I think Mikhail from Opus played some of the music on... I think he played some of the acoustic moments, right? In the new album. So that might actually be relevant. I don't know if this is something that, like, if this is a relationship that's been going on for that long. But that was Opus Eponymous. Eponymous? By Ghost. So, guys, I figured it'd be fun to... I didn't think of doing this at the start of the video, but I forgot that you can go onto YouTube in the analytics. This is what you're looking at on screen for anyone who isn't familiar with the YouTube studio. And you can filter your channel by comments. So I've just typed in Opus to see what people are saying about this album, if there is any. Now, as you can see, there's a couple comments and it pretty much ends there. So, I mean, for a video that has like 300 plus comments, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 comments that include the word Opus. Now, a lot of people use the word magnum opus as well. So there might be some comments that actually aren't related to Opus Eponymous, which is this album. So let me just read some of this because I found this comment which is pretty interesting, and now people will have to let me know if this is accurate because I'm just taking this person on YouTube's word for it. But Ghost is definitely newer than Metallica, which I've obviously since established in the start of the video. Ghost was started in 2006 as a few singles but didn't fully materialize into live shows or an album until 2010. Okay, so they were actually around since 2006, but the album, which we've just checked out, is obviously what comes out in 2010. But the lore puts the band as having supposedly been founded in the late 1960s, with 3 songs having been confirmed as written in 1969 by Papa Niall, the biological father of all other frontmen since, and the project was supposedly disbanded due to Niall's lack of focus on the clergy in favor of stardom. What are we talking about here? Years later, one of his sons restarted the project with the first 4 albums, Opus Eponymous, Infestissima, that one, the other one I can't say, and Prequel. Is that how you spell prequel? Prequel? I know prequel is spelled differently to that, right? Anyways, it doesn't matter. Being headed by a different frontman, Papa's 1 to 3 and the supposed outsider, Cardinal Copia, later confirmed as a secret additional son of Niall. Okay, and then for Impera, the 5th album, Cardinal Copia was granted an ascension to the title of Papa IV before being promoted again to the head of the clergy, clearing the way for his mysterious and long-lost fraternal twin to take over the band for this album cycle. I'm not sure if that was supposed to help or make me scared to go any further with this, but like, what did I just read? Like, the first part of the paragraph made sense. I was on board with all that, and then it was just Papa fucking 4 to 7 and all this, like his sons are taking over, and the band actually started like 50 years ago, but they only released their album 15 years ago. So much to learn. Do I want to go that deep down the rabbit hole? Probably not, unless I just fall in love with the band across their discography, because that's generally when I care about like the actual really deep intricate lore. It's nice to have some idea because it helps with the lyrical content, but it's a bit much, you know what I mean? Far from their best album. The first 3 tracks are strong. Peacefield might be in my top 3 from them. Honestly, the rest is meh. This one is the one outstanding album. Opus Eponymous and Prequel are very fun too. Honestly, you should do all their albums. Opus Eponymous are goated. Okay. The most sense would be just to go backwards from here, which would be... Okay, so people are actually saying it would make sense to go backwards. So, look. Ultimately, I've started where I've started. And that's just... kind of it. I think it makes the most sense. Like, I know some people will say that, like, maybe based on my tastes, it might make more sense to like go backwards. I've done that before with many bands and I've kind of regretted it, because it just means that I'm not really seeing the true progression of the band, and also it feels like the journey gets worse as we go because you're going further back in the discography, and generally I'm a little bit more in tune with the more modern sounding stuff. So like anytime you start with the most recent stuff and go backwards, it feels like you're just slowly getting like, it's just getting less enjoyable, and almost at the end of it leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth with the bands. So I think for this band, definitely it makes the most sense for me, because I love their new stuff so much, to start here, and hopefully I can follow the progression and hopefully enjoy it as we go, because I know compared to their new album, this is definitely a fun album. And look, it's 34 minutes long. It's a very easy listen, especially for like stuff that I've been recently listening to and for the last couple of years. If there's like a metalcore album or a deathcore album that is like this long, if it's kind of repetitive and samey, 34 minutes feels like a long fucking time to be listening to something that's like metalcore, because metalcore just has so many things that every band does, and sometimes you can almost sniff it out before it even happens, and it gets very, very predictable and boring. So 34 minutes of that is very, very hard to sit through. Whereas something like this is chopping and changing every couple of minutes, every couple of seconds even. There's so many different layers and fun harmonies and fun melodies to a certain extent. I'll get onto the melodies in a moment. But the point is that it's very easy to just get through it. So even though like I don't like this as much as the Skeletá album, I think it's a very listenable album. And obviously for the time that it came out, and sometimes when you go back to these first band's albums, the production and the mix and everything is so ass compared to what you're used to. And it's a very hard experience. Nothing about this stood out to me as being like, oh yeah, they're really off the ball there with the actual mix. Mix sounded great. Everything was layered really nicely. The melody choices, I think, are just the main thing I have with this album. I don't think like musically it was that far off of what we heard on Skeletá. Maybe like lyrically and stuff like that, I could go with a little bit deeper, but obviously we're not going to do that too deep for this video. I'll let you guys fill me in on a lot of the lore that's gone on. But I think the main thing that's not stuck with me as much as Skeletá is the actual melodies. Again, very easy listening experience, and there was nothing that I wanted to end. There was no moment in it where I was like, oh, turn this off, please. It's just not really my vibe at all. But there was also nothing that made the playlist. So that is in stark contrast to my opinions of Satanize, where literally 50% of the songs ended up in my playlist because of how catchy they were. I just feel like maybe, whether this is the same vocalist, I'm starting to have my doubts that this is even Tobias now, based on the comment that I've seen where there's been like different members and shit. You'll have to let me know that one as well. I think it is just purely Tobias across this. But I was under the assumption that it's just been the same vocalist all this time. But again, I'm having my doubts. It does sound the same. He's got the same like delivery that's quite monotone in certain parts. But I just feel like when it was time to get melodic, the melodies didn't stick out to me as much. I think the MVP on this album is probably the bass tone and the organ, which is not something I ever would have thought I would ever say on an album, that the organ was the standout. There is great moments across the album, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like the organ added so much character to certain areas that maybe would have lacked in character without it being included. And it was a very subtle touch, and that was something I discussed at the time when I was like really paying attention to it. It's one of these things that I think is such a small detail, but I think it's the combination of all these small details across a band's discography that makes a band what they are today. So that's pretty much it, lads. I mean, I'm looking forward to jumping into this discography. The next album we're going to check out is obviously the next one in their discography, which is, I don't know the name of. I'll check it real quick. I believe it is called Infestisumum. Probably butchered that. So if you're looking forward to checking that one out, guys, please do. leave a like in this video when it's on YouTube. This will probably end up being a highlight video. So if you've watched this far, I really appreciate it. The full album reactions will live on Patreon. It's just a lot easier to, it's just easier to do that way, to be honest. Patreon will be the full albums. I'll leave all the review stuff on the YouTube video as well, so people don't have to come to Patreon just to get the review. But if you want to support me and what I'm doing here, any support on Patreon will be much appreciated. I love yous. Otherwise, that is all from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm signing out. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.